The bustling office floor of Carter Tech buzzed with activity. Programmers clicked away at their keyboards, analysts exchanged data, and project managers coordinated in hushed tones. At the heart of it all was Samantha Carter, the company's chief technology officer and the wife of Mark Carter, the company's CEO. It was a role Samantha had worked tirelessly to achieve, not because of her marital status, but because of her sheer brilliance and dedication. Today, however, something was off. The energy in the office felt different, tense. Samantha noticed Mark's assistant, Laura, darting around nervously, whispering into her phone. Then, at precisely 10 a.m., Samantha received a terse message summoning her to the executive conference room. The bombshell announcement. As Samantha entered the room, she was met by a line of familiar faces. Mark, his two brothers, his cousin, and his father, 5 members of the Carter family who held executive roles in the company. They all avoided eye contact. Mark's expression was unreadable, a stark contrast to the confident smile he usually wore. "Samantha," Mark began, his tone overly formal, "thank you for coming. There's no easy way to say this, so I'll be direct." She crossed her arms, sensing something unpleasant on the horizon. "Go ahead," she said coolly. "We've decided to restructure Carter Tech's leadership. Moving forward, only family members will be part of the executive team. As you know, the company's identity is built on the Carter legacy." Samantha's stomach dropped. "So, you're saying," Mark cleared his throat, "you're no longer needed in your role as CTO." The words hit her like a slap. Her mind raced, trying to process the betrayal. She had built the company's most successful software product, AlphaSuite, a platform that generated over 60% of Carter Tech's revenue. It was her brainchild, her passion project, and the reason Carter Tech had grown into a tech giant. "And what about my contributions?" Samantha asked, her voice steady but her eyes burning with anger. "The projects I lead? The technology one designed? None of that matters because I don't share your last name?" Mark's expression faltered for a moment before he steeled himself. "We appreciate everything you've done, but this decision is final. It's about family, Samantha. I'm sure you understand." A silent exit. Samantha held his gaze for a long moment before a small, enigmatic smile crossed her lips. She nodded once and said, "Okay." Her calmness unsettled the room. Mark had expected an argument, perhaps even tears, but Samantha simply gathered her things and left. Walking back to her office, she felt a strange sense of clarity. The sting of betrayal was there, but it was accompanied by something else, resolve. She had poured her heart and soul into AlphaSuite, and while the company might claim ownership of the product, the technology and the vision behind it were undeniably hers. Samantha returned to her desk and initiated a carefully planned protocol she had designed years ago for emergencies. In under an hour, she deactivated AlphaSuite's external servers, locking the platform's access. Without AlphaSuite, Carter Tech's clients would be left stranded. The morning after the next day, Samantha awoke to the sound of her phone vibrating incessantly. She ignored the first few calls, savoring the rare opportunity to sleep in, but curiosity got the better of her. When she checked her phone, the caller ID read, Mark Carter. Samantha smirked and let it go to voicemail. Minutes later, a frantic text arrived, "Samantha, we need to talk. Call me ASAP. It's urgent." She took her time, enjoying her coffee and a peaceful morning. By the time she called him back, Mark's desperation was palpable. "What the hell is going on?" he barked as soon as he picked up. "AlphaSuite is offline. Clients are calling nonstop. They're threatening to pull contracts. What did you do?" Samantha's tone was calm, almost amused. "I didn't do anything, Mark. I just deactivated the system. After all, I'm no longer part of the company, remember?" "You can't do that," he shouted. "We need AlphaSuite to operate. The entire business depends on it." "Well, it's a good thing I still have full control of the software," Samantha replied, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. "But I'm no longer an employee, so fixing it isn't really my problem, is it?" The regret begins. Mark's silence was deafening. Samantha could almost hear the gears turning in his head as he realized the gravity of his mistake. "What do you want?" he asked finally, his voice subdued. Oh, I don't want anything, Samantha said. I'm just enjoying my newfound freedom. You can't leave us like this. Mark pleaded. The company, my company, needs Alpha Suite. We need you. Samantha let out a soft laugh. Mark, maybe you should have thought about that before firing me. You made it clear I wasn't family, so consider this my farewell gift. She ended the call, her heart pounding with exhilaration. For the first time in years, she felt truly empowered. A plan in motion that evening, Samantha opened her laptop and began drafting a new vision for Alpha Suite. She didn't need Carter Tech to succeed. She could build something even better on her own. The next phase of her journey was just beginning, and Samantha was ready to show Mark and the world what she was truly capable of. The fallout from Samantha's departure hit Carter Tech harder than anyone had anticipated. By the end of the first day, client complaints had escalated into full-blown chaos. Contracts were in jeopardy, the IT department was scrambling to restore access, and Mark Carter found himself on the defensive with the board of directors. For a company that prided itself on stability and innovation, the sudden failure of Alpha Suite, the cornerstone of its operations, was a disaster. A boardroom uprising Mark sat at the head of the long mahogany conference table, his usually commanding presence diminished under the critical gazes of the board members. "This is unacceptable," barked Victor Lane, the head of investor relations. "We've lost 3 major clients in the last 24 hours, and more are threatening to leave. What are you doing to fix this, Mark?" Mark ran a hand through his hair, his frustration evident. "I've already spoken with Samantha. I'm working on resolving the issue." Another board member, Judith Powell, leaned forward. "You mean Samantha Carter, the woman you unceremoniously fired yesterday? The same woman who designed Alpha Suite?" Mark gritted his teeth. "Yes, her. And how do you plan to convince her to help after what you did?" Judith continued, her tone sharp. "If this isn't resolved immediately, we'll lose everything we've built." Mark didn't respond. He knew they were right. His decision to remove Samantha had been short-sighted, driven by a misguided need to consolidate power within the family. Now, the consequences were spiraling out of control. Samantha's new beginning while Carter Tech unraveled. Samantha thrived. In her sunlit home office, she worked tirelessly on a reimagined version of Alpha Suite, free from the constraints of Carter Tech's bureaucracy. She had already contacted a trusted network of developers and collaborators, assembling a small but talented team to bring her vision to life. Her phone buzzed with messages from former colleagues who had heard about her departure. Many offered words of support, while others hinted at their dissatisfaction with the company under Mark's leadership. One message caught her attention. "If you're building something new, I want in. I'd rather work for a leader who values people than stay in this sinking ship. Let me know if you're hiring. Karen." Karen had been one of Samantha's most reliable engineers at Carter Tech, and her offer sparked an idea. The recruitment game Samantha began reaching out discreetly to former coworkers, gauging their interest in joining her new venture. The responses were overwhelmingly positive. "Mark doesn't care about us," one programmer said during a call. "He only cares about his family's legacy. If you're offering something better, I'm in." By the end of the week, Samantha had secured a core team of loyal and talented professionals, all eager to leave Carter Tech behind. Mark's desperation meanwhile, Mark's attempts to contact Samantha became increasingly frantic. His texts and calls ranged from pleas to threats, but Samantha remained unshaken. She knew she held all the cards. Late one evening, Mark showed up at her door, his face drawn and his usual confidence replaced with desperation. "Samantha," he began, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "We need to talk." Samantha leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "I don't think we have anything to discuss, Mark." "Please," he said, his tone breaking. "Just hear me out." Reluctantly, she stepped aside and let him in. The ultimatum Mark paced the living room, struggling to find the right words. "The company is falling apart," he admitted. "Clients are leaving, the board is furious, and we can't fix Alpha Suite without you." "That's not my problem anymore," Samantha replied, her voice calm but firm. "I was wrong to fire you," Mark continued. "I see that now. I let my ego get in the way, and I made a mistake. But you can fix this. You can save the company. Samantha raised an eyebrow. Save your company, you mean? Mark's shoulders sagged. It's not just about me. Hundreds of people rely on Carter Tech for their livelihoods. Please, Samantha, if you won't do it for me, do it for them. For a brief moment, Samantha hesitated. Despite everything, she couldn't ignore the impact her actions were having on the employees who had worked alongside her. But then she remembered the humiliation of being dismissed, the years of dedication dismissed as irrelevant. I'll think about it, she said finally, though her tone left little room for hope. The leverage after Mark left, Samantha knew she needed to stay ahead. He wasn't just seeking her help, he was trying to regain control. She called her legal advisor, a sharp-witted attorney named Rachel, to discuss her next steps. Mark's panicking, Samantha explained, but I don't trust him to honor any agreements. Rachel chuckled. Smart. Let me draft a proposal. If he wants your help, he'll have to meet your terms, and I mean every single one of them. By the time the document was ready, Samantha felt more prepared than ever. She wasn't just negotiating with Mark, she was reclaiming her power. Samantha's proposal was a bold move, but it was exactly what Rachel had advised. She had outlined every condition with surgical precision, ensuring that the power was firmly in her hands. The terms were uncompromising: full ownership of Alpha Suite, with perpetual rights to its code, an official public apology from Mark for his actions, a guaranteed 20% stake in Carter Tech, or a lump sum payout equivalent to its valuation. Mark, who had been pushing for a meeting to discuss Samantha's return, finally agreed to her terms of negotiation. The venue was chosen carefully. Rachel's sleek law office, neutral ground with a hint of intimidation. The face-off when Mark walked into the room. His confidence seemed restored, but Samantha saw through it. She knew the desperation bubbling beneath his polished exterior. Samantha, he began smoothly, I'm glad we're doing this face-to-face. Samantha sat at the conference table, Rachel beside her, exuding calm authority. Let's not waste time, Mark. You've seen my terms. Do you agree, or should I assume this meeting is over? Mark flinched at her bluntness, but quickly masked it with a smile. We can negotiate, he said. Some of these demands are excessive. Excessive? Rachel interjected, her tone razor-sharp. Considering the current state of Carter Tech, I'd say my client is being generous. Mark's smile faltered. Look, I understand you're upset. I'm not upset, Samantha interrupted, her voice icy. I'm pragmatic, and I know my worth, even if you didn't. A power shift. Mark leaned forward, his tone shifting to one of controlled frustration. You have no idea what's at stake here. Carter Tech's survival depends on Alpha Suite. If you keep holding out, you're not just hurting me, you're hurting everyone who works there. And whose fault is that? Samantha countered. You fired me, Mark. You made it clear I wasn't family. But now you want me to save your company? It doesn't work like that. Mark's composure cracked for a moment, and Samantha caught a glimpse of the man who had once been her partner, not just in marriage but in building something meaningful. Sam, he said softly, we built this company together. I made a mistake, but we can fix this. Together. For a moment, Samantha felt a pang of nostalgia. But then she remembered the humiliation, the betrayal, and the countless nights she had spent working tirelessly while Mark took the credit. No, Mark, she said firmly. You broke this, and now you're going to pay for it. The shocking revelation. The room fell silent as Rachel slid a folder across the table. Since my client has been accused of being unreasonable, Rachel said, her voice laced with irony, we thought it would be helpful to outline exactly why these terms are more than fair. Mark opened the folder, his expression darkening as he scanned the documents inside. It wasn't just Samantha's demands. It was evidence of Carter Tech's precarious financial position. Internal memos, client complaints, and projected losses were laid bare. How did you get this? Mark demanded, his voice rising. That's not important, Samantha said calmly. What matters is that you're one bad quarter away from losing everything. Without Alpha Suite, your company is finished. Mark's face paled. He had underestimated her, not just her resolve, but her ability to outmaneuver him. A moment of panic. Mark's desperation became evident as he tried to pivot. "We can work something out," he said, his tone conciliatory. "Maybe we don't need to involve Alpha Suite at all. We can develop something new better." Samantha smirked. "Good luck with that. You'll need at least a year to catch up, assuming you have a team capable of doing it. But from what I hear, most of your top talent is already planning to leave." Mark's jaw tightened. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" Samantha's expression softened, but only slightly. "I didn't want it to come to this, Mark, but you made your choice. Now it's my turn." The agreement. Hours later, after heated arguments and tense negotiations, Mark finally relented. He signed the agreement, his hand trembling slightly as he handed it back to Rachel. "Congratulations," Rachel said, her tone professional but tinged with satisfaction. "You've made the right choice." Mark didn't respond. He looked at Samantha, his expression a mix of anger and regret. "I hope this was worth it," he said bitterly. Samantha met his gaze, her resolve unshaken. It was. A new beginning. As Samantha left the law office, a weight lifted from her shoulders. The fight was over, but her journey was just beginning. With full ownership of Alpha Suite and the resources to rebuild, she was ready to chart her own path. Cartertech's downfall was inevitable, but Samantha wasn't interested in revenge anymore. She was focused on the future, a future where she called the shots, and her work was valued for what it was. With Alpha Suite fully under her control and the legal battle behind her, Samantha dove headfirst into her next venture. She named her new company Innovia, a nod to her commitment to innovation and progress without the toxic politics she had endured at Cartertech. Her focus wasn't just on rebuilding Alpha Suite, but on expanding it into something even greater, a suite of tools that could revolutionize the way businesses operated. And she wasn't doing it alone. The team grows. Samantha's outreach to former Cartertech employees paid off. Within weeks, a core team of brilliant engineers, developers, and analysts had joined Innovia. Karen, her former engineer, became the lead developer, while other top talent filled critical roles. Each person who joined carried the same determination Samantha did, to create something meaningful without the interference of corporate ego. "It feels like we're part of something bigger," Karen said during one of their late-night brainstorming sessions. "This isn't just work. It's a mission." Samantha smiled. "That's exactly what it is. And together, we're going to make it happen." Cartertech's collapse. Meanwhile, Cartertech was in free fall. Without Alpha Suite, their clients fled en masse. The remaining products in their portfolio couldn't compete with the market leaders, and Mark struggled to keep up appearances. The board of directors, once loyal to Mark, turned against him as the losses mounted. "You assured us this was under control," Victor Lane said during a tense board meeting. "Instead, we're hemorrhaging money, and our reputation is in tatters. Do you even have a plan?" Mark's frustration boiled over. "I'm working on it," he snapped. "This is just a temporary setback." But the board wasn't convinced. The cracks in Mark's leadership were becoming impossible to ignore. The first launch at Innovia, things couldn't have been more different. Samantha and her team worked tirelessly to perfect their new version of Alpha Suite, now rebranded as AlphaNext. The platform was sleeker, faster, and packed with features designed to outshine anything else on the market. The launch was scheduled for a Friday morning, and anticipation was high. Samantha stood in front of her team, her excitement tempered by nerves. "This is it," she said, addressing the room. "What we've built here is extraordinary. But remember, this is just the beginning. Let's show the world what Innovia is all about." As the platform went live, the response was immediate. Businesses that had abandoned Cartertech flocked to AlphaNext, impressed by its user-friendly design and powerful capabilities. Social media buzzed with praise, and industry analysts hailed Innovia as a game-changer. By the end of the day, Samantha's email inbox was flooded with partnership offers and investment inquiries. "We did it," Karen said, grinning from ear to ear. "No," Samantha corrected her, smiling. "We're just getting started." Mark's breaking point across town. Mark sat in his empty office, staring at the latest financial reports. Cartertech's revenue had plummeted by another 40%, and layoffs were imminent. His phone buzzed with a notification. Alphanext launch breaks records, hailed as the future of business software. Mark's hand tightened around the phone as he read the article. The photograph of Samantha at the launch event, smiling confidently, was like a dagger to his chest. "She's doing this to spite me," he muttered to himself. "She wants me to fail." But deep down, he knew the truth. Samantha wasn't thinking about him at all. She was simply moving forward, leaving him behind. A desperate move that evening, Mark made a decision. He couldn't let Samantha's success continue unchecked. If Innovia grew too powerful, Cartertech wouldn't survive. He called an emergency meeting with a handful of remaining executives. "We need to take action," he said, his voice urgent. "Samantha is using Alphanext to destroy us, and we can't let that happen." "What do you suggest?" one of them asked. Mark hesitated before replying, his tone dark. "If we can't compete with her, we'll make sure she can't compete with us. Whatever it takes." The executives exchanged uneasy glances, but no one objected. An unexpected ally the next day, Samantha received an email from an anonymous sender. The message was brief but chilling. "Be careful. Mark is planning something big, and it's not just business." Samantha's stomach dropped as she reread the message. She had expected Mark to retaliate in some way, but the vagueness of the threat left her uneasy. She forwarded the email to Rachel, who replied almost instantly, "Don't worry. I'll handle this. But in the meantime, keep your guard up." The stakes rise despite the warning. Samantha refused to let fear dictate her actions. She continued to push Innovia forward, meeting with investors, refining Alphanext, and preparing for the next phase of her vision. But as the days passed, strange things began to happen. A key investor suddenly pulled out without explanation. One of Innovia's servers experienced a suspicious outage. Samantha's car was tampered with, causing a minor accident. It became clear that someone was trying to sabotage her. The turning point one evening, Samantha sat in her office, poring over security reports, when Rachel called. "I found something," Rachel said, her tone grim. "Mark's hired a private investigator to dig into your personal life. He's also been meeting with some questionable people who specialize in corporate sabotage." Samantha's jaw tightened. "He's playing dirty." Rachel's voice softened. "Sam, you need to be careful. This isn't just about business anymore. It's personal." Samantha leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. Mark's desperation had pushed him to dangerous extremes, but she wasn't going to let him win. "This ends now," she said, determination hardening her voice. Samantha spent the next few days fortifying her position. Her tech team increased Innovia's digital security measures. Rachel prepared legal defenses, and Samantha herself reached out to key investors, ensuring their confidence in the company. But the attacks didn't stop. A fake news article accusing Innovia of unethical practices surfaced online. Rumors swirled about Samantha's alleged involvement in insider trading. While none of it stuck, the damage to Innovia's reputation was undeniable. Samantha knew the source, Mark, and she was done playing defense. The decision to strike back late one evening, Samantha called Rachel. "We need to take this to the next level," Samantha said. "Mark isn't just sabotaging me. He's endangering everything we've built. It's time to put an end to this." Rachel didn't hesitate. "I've been waiting for you to say that. Let's take him down." Uncovering the truth, Samantha and Rachel began digging into Cartertech's recent activities. What they uncovered was worse than they expected. Emails and financial records revealed that Mark had not only orchestrated the attacks on Innovia, but had also engaged in fraudulent practices to keep Cartertech afloat. He had diverted funds from employee pensions, falsified revenue reports, and even bribed regulators to cover his tracks. Rachel's voice was steady but laced with anger as she laid out the findings. "He's committing financial crimes on top of everything else. If we go public with this, he won't just lose the company. He could go to prison." Samantha's jaw tightened. "Good. Let's make sure he does." A public reckoning the following week, Samantha and Rachel called a press conference. Industry leaders, reporters, and even Cartertech employees packed the room, their curiosity palpable. Samantha stood at the podium, her expression calm but resolute. "Today, I want to address the challenges Innovia has faced in recent months. These weren't random obstacles. They were deliberate acts of sabotage by Carter Tech and its leadership. Gasps rippled through the crowd as Samantha presented the evidence. Screens behind her displayed emails, financial documents, and security footage linking Mark to the attacks. She paused, letting the weight of the revelations sink in before delivering the final blow. This isn't just about Inovia. It's about holding people accountable for their actions. And I won't rest until justice is served. The room erupted in questions, but Samantha stayed composed, answering only what was necessary before stepping away from the podium. Mark's world crumbles. The fallout was immediate. News outlets ran with the story, painting Mark as a corrupt CEO desperate to save his crumbling empire. Carter Tech's stock plummeted, and investors fled en masse. Within days, federal investigators launched an inquiry into Carter Tech's finances. Mark was subpoenaed to testify, and rumors of potential arrests circulated. Back at Inovia, Samantha watched the events unfold with a mix of relief and vindication. A surprising twist: just when Samantha thought the dust was settling, she received an unexpected visitor, Mark himself. He arrived unannounced, his usually confident demeanor replaced by desperation. "Samantha," he began, his voice trembling, "I need your help." Samantha crossed her arms, her expression unreadable. "Help? After everything you've done?" Mark looked down, unable to meet her gaze. "I was wrong. About you, about the company, about everything. I let my pride destroy what we built, and now I'm paying the price." "And you think I owe you something?" Samantha asked, her voice cold. Mark shook his head. "No, but I'm asking anyway. If there's any way you can help me fix this, I'll do whatever it takes." The final decision. Samantha stared at him for a long moment, memories of their partnership flashing through her mind. She saw the man she had once loved, the man who had betrayed her, and now the man who stood before her, broken. "I can't fix this for you, Mark," she said finally, "but I'll tell you this. The only way forward is to own up to what you've done. Take responsibility, cooperate with the authorities, and maybe, just maybe, you'll have a chance to rebuild something someday." Mark nodded, his face a mix of gratitude and defeat. "Thank you," he said softly before turning to leave. A new chapter. Weeks later, Carter Tech filed for bankruptcy, and Mark stepped down as CEO amid mounting legal troubles. Inovia, meanwhile, continued to thrive, its reputation stronger than ever. Samantha stood in her office, overlooking the bustling city, a sense of peace washing over her. The battle was over, and she had emerged stronger. Her assistant knocked on the door, interrupting her thoughts. "Samantha, the board is ready for you." She smiled, grabbing her notes. "Let's build something amazing," she said, walking into the meeting with her head held high. Months had passed since Carter Tech's collapse and Mark's resignation. Inovia was flourishing, and Samantha's name had become synonymous with resilience and visionary leadership. AlphaNext was breaking records, onboarding new clients weekly, and Inovia had just secured a prestigious partnership with a global tech giant. But despite the success, Samantha couldn't ignore the lingering memories of her past. The echoes of betrayal and triumph left her contemplating not just what she had gained, but also what she had lost. An unexpected letter. One quiet afternoon, Samantha sat in her office reviewing plans for Inovia's next product launch when her assistant walked in with an envelope. "This just came for you," she said, placing it on Samantha's desk. Samantha glanced at the return address and froze. It was from Mark. She hesitated for a moment before opening it. Inside was a handwritten letter, a rarity in an age of digital communication. "Samantha, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I needed to say this. I've spent the past few months reflecting on my actions, and I realize how deeply I hurt you. Not just by firing you, but by undervaluing everything you brought to Carter Tech and to me. You were the heart of that company, and I was too blind to see it. I'm facing the consequences of my choices, as I should. But I hope that someday, you might find it in your heart to forgive me. Not for my sake, but for yours. You've built something incredible with Inovia, and I have no doubt you'll continue to change the world. Thank you for showing me what true strength looks like." Mark, A surge of emotion. Samantha put the letter down, her emotions swirling. She felt no pity for Mark. He had brought his downfall upon himself. But there was something about the letter's tone that struck a chord. It wasn't just an apology. It was an acknowledgement of her worth, something she had longed for during their years together. It didn't change the past, but it offered a sliver of closure she hadn't realized she needed. She folded the letter and tucked it away in a drawer, deciding to revisit it another time. A chance encounter. A week later, Samantha attended a gala hosted by one of Inovia's major partners. The room was filled with influential figures from the tech world, but one face stood out in the crowd: Mark. He was seated at a small table near the back, avoiding the limelight that once defined him. Samantha hesitated before walking over. "Mark," she said, her voice calm but firm. He looked up, surprise flashing across his face. "Samantha, I didn't expect to see you here." "I didn't expect to see you either," she replied. "What are you doing here?" "I'm consulting for one of the smaller firms," he admitted. "It's different from what I'm used to, but it's humbling." Samantha nodded, her gaze steady. "Sometimes humility is exactly what we need." Mark chuckled softly. "You're right about that. I'm trying to rebuild, in my own way. But seeing you here, thriving, it's a reminder of what could have been if I'd made different choices." Samantha's expression softened. "It's never too late to learn from the past, Mark. The question is, what will you do with what you've learned?" A reflection on the journey. As the evening progressed, Samantha found herself reflecting on how far she had come. The betrayal, the struggle, and the triumph had all shaped her into the woman she was today. She thought about the younger version of herself who had poured her heart into Carter Tech, never imagining she would one day face its destruction. And yet, that destruction had been the catalyst for her greatest success. Later, as she stood by the venue's floor-to-ceiling windows, gazing at the city lights, she felt a quiet sense of gratitude. Not for the pain she had endured, but for the strength it had uncovered within her. An unexpected opportunity. Just as Samantha was about to leave the gala, a man approached her. He introduced himself as Michael Hayes, the CEO of a prominent venture capital firm. "I've been following your story," he said. "What you've done with Inovia is extraordinary. But I have a proposition for you, something even bigger." Samantha raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." Michael leaned in, his tone conspiratorial. "I'm putting together a think tank of the brightest minds in tech. The goal is to tackle global challenges, climate change, healthcare, education, and develop solutions that can truly change the world. With your leadership and vision, I think you could be a cornerstone of this initiative." The idea intrigued Samantha, but she needed time to consider. "It's an ambitious vision," she said. "Let me think about it." Michael nodded. "Take all the time you need. But know this, the world needs people like you." A life reimagined. That night, as Samantha returned home, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The challenges she had faced with Mark and Carter Tech had taught her invaluable lessons about resilience, self-worth, and the power of starting over. Now, she had the opportunity to take those lessons and apply them on a global scale. Sitting at her desk, she pulled out a blank notebook and began to jot down ideas. For the first time in years, the future felt limitless. The final thought: Samantha's journey wasn't just about overcoming betrayal or building a successful company. It was about discovering who she truly was and realizing that her worth was never tied to someone else's validation. Her story was a testament to the power of resilience, the courage to forge a new path, and the belief that even in the face of adversity, the best chapters are yet to be written.